students. Well, this lecture is of week 7, lecture 19, 20 and 11 part 1. This lecture is about formal reports, in which we will discuss about the importance of formal report, how you can write the formal report, and what are the do's and don'ts of writing or presenting your formal reports. The major topics that we will discuss in our lecture is, first we discuss about introduction, in which we will discuss what is formal report. After that we will discuss the elements of formal reports, what are those elements uh, that are very necessary for writing a formal report. For example, writing title page, table of content, summary, and methodology and conclusions. These all are the elements of the formal reports, and how you can write um these specific uh, points or specific headings to make your formal report easy to read for the audience. Along with that, the most important is statement writing. The statement writing is one of the most important aspect that we generally ignore most of the time, because the purpose statement uh, is very important, because what we want to convey to audience is important. So there are different uh, type of statements, or I can say statement. In a statement writing we will discuss the purpose statement, we will discuss the scope statement, we will discuss the procedure statement, we will discuss the background statements, or you can say the lengthy problem statements. So we will discuss all these type of statement writing, because if we know the exact statement that why we are writing the report, so it will be very easy for us and also for the audience to understand it. So for example, if I don't know which type of a statement I have to write for my uh, formal report, so it will be very difficult to keep it simple or keep it easy for the audience. Moreover, we will discuss the body of formal report, what are the essentials of formal report, how you can start the report, or what are the major topics, or what are the major headings that you have to discuss in the body of the formal report, and how much the length of those headings. um, these are the important points that we will discuss. After that we will discuss the end material. The end material is very important. Like in end material we have glossary, we have annexes, we have conclusions, we have references. So we will discuss that what are the important points that you have to take care of while writing the end material. uh, After that we will discuss some example of formal reports uh, that are commonly used, like safety reports, audit reports, compliance reports. Most of the time the engineers have to write the compliance report. So we will discuss some of the examples. In the last we will discuss the conclusion. So this is the complete lecture outline for our both parts, part 1 and part 2. Like as you know, in last week we have discussed the informal reports, and now we are discussing the formal reports. So, for a better understanding, um, listen one more time about informal reports before listening to this lecture. So, you can clearly differentiate between the formal and informal reports. So we will start from introduction from our next slide. A formal report is an official report that contains detailed information, research, and data necessary to make business decision. And some of the examples are annual reports, expense reports, and safety reports. Well, some of the major, and I must say, the if I say what are the general purpose of creating a formal report, so we can say the general purpose of a formal report is to provide information to stakeholders or your audience, decision makers, uh, to make decisions. Or if I can say, what are the major types of formal report, and what are the key differences between um, any two types of report. So I can say um reports can be purely um informative, um, analytical information, or you can say analytical reports provide information. So the major, as I can say in the introduction part, the formal reports consist of three major subsections, like front section, in which we focus on table of content, or summaries, abstracts, or introduction. Then after the front section we have the main body, and then we have the end section. So there are various problems that we face in generally in formal report writing. So one of the most important problem, and most occurring problem, is that how the reader uh, will understand your information. Because like as I earlier I mentioned, that if you are writing analytical report, if you are writing some technical report, if you are writing some audit report, or somehow you are writing a compliance report, so you have to keep it in your mind about your audience. So I can say it should not be assumed the readers understand all the technical details of the report, as they may not have training in all aspects of the material being covered. This is the most common problem that we face generally. um, like if I'm writing a progress report, um, in terms of some analytical terms, so it is about boiler. When it comes to reader, and I can say, if the director of the company want to read that report, so it might be possible that he cannot understand all the aspects of that report, but the conclusion is very important, because he will take decision on the basis of conclusions you provided, and especially your references, and your report is very important on that basis. So um, it is not, um, I can say, mandatory that the reader understand all the aspects of your report. So as I mentioned earlier, you can use tables, you can use figures, you can use any other means that will help you to make understand the audience, to keep in touch with report, or to keep it simple for them. So these are some brief questions that we should ask ourselves while writing the formal reports. And generally, um, like in informal reports, we have mentioned that you don't have to write too much, but in formal reports, yes, you have to write a number of pages, because there are no any ordinary information that you are providing. You are providing a proper information in a proper format, and it might be possible, generally companies drafted special formats for their reports, and you have to write in that format, and somehow it will be an easy option, because you just have to fill the columns, or I can say fill the rows that is provided in the report. And you don't have to worry about the formatting, you don't have to worry about the text, you don't have to worry about the headings, what should I include or what should I not include. So in that case, it will be very helpful. One more aspect, that is on paper report, or a online report, or I can say a computer generated report. Most of the organization follow this concept, that is fair use policy of the paper. And to avoid the paper waste, they generally prefer the soft version of the reports. Now, while writing the report, you have to be very careful that it should be compatible with the softwares. Like you have the different PDF formats, and in PDF format, you just have to that is portable document format, obviously. um, you just have to provide the whole report. You don't need to format it again and again, because in some of the word processing tools, there's a problem that if you write in a different version, so it might not open, or the formatting may get flawed at that time. So you have to be very careful in terms of formatting if it is totally an online report. Because if it is a hard copy report, then you have to take print out, and after that you have to make file and send it to the user or your audience. So these are some of the important points that you have to keep it in your mind while writing the formal report. Elements of a formal report. Well, to produce a formal report, the writer used several elements that orients the reader or the audience to report that topic and organization. Well, those elements unique to formal report are the majorly front material, the body, and the end material. Generally, the front material includes the title page, as I mentioned earlier, the table of content, a list of illustrations, and summaries, abstracts, and all the other material. And generally, in the body, section. You have to write like chapter wise, like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and all that. In the end section, you mentioned the appendix or annexure, glossary, or the conclusion generally. Majorly, uh, it is divided into the two major categories, like the traditional formal report and the administrative formal report. There is no such big difference between these two types, but let's first understand that what are these. Generally, the traditional pattern leads the reader through the data to the conclusion. The conclusion and recommendations appear at the end of the report. So this is the total, the pattern of the traditional report, formal report. On the other hand, the administrative pattern represent readers with the information they need to perform their role in the company. So conclusion and recommendations appears early in this report. So this is the major uh, difference that you have to understand. Like in traditional report, like in journal, like your FIP report, you always write the conclusions, references, recommendations in the very last sections. But in the administrative report, you generally write these conclusions and recommendation in the somehow in the mid section. Now, why we do this? Why it is important? Because in administrative matters, your conclusions, your recommendations matters a lot, and uh, it will have, I must say, a heavy impact on the audience, or somehow in the decision making sections. Because I took an example of an industry. For example, an energy audit is performed in that industry, and as an internal auditor, I write the report, which generally belongs uh, to the specific plant, or I can say the whole audit process. So um, I will emphasize on the recommendations and conclusions that I feel or that I see while the audit has been conducted by some external parties. Now, the administration is very much focused on my conclusion and my recommendations. So they generally they don't want to discuss the introduction, the summary, or somehow they only want the recommendation and the conclusion part to be very strong. So this is the basic difference between a traditional and administrative report. When you perform your duties in the industries, most of the time you have to write the administrative report, because you generally have to report to your superior boss. Like you have to report your manager, you have to report your general manager, director. So these administrative reports are very much important in terms of um, formal report writing. And if I see the contents, like you can see in traditional report, we have the title page in which we mention about the report. Then we have the table of contents. After that, we have the list of illustrations, summary or abstracts. Then we will discuss introduction. Then we have the body section, in which the detailed discussion, like I mentioned earlier, in the chapter wise discussion. After that, we have the conclusion section, and then we have recommendations and references. So this is the basic traditional type of report. Now, um in administrative report, you have the title page, table of contents, list of illustrations, summary or abstract, introduction. Now, there is no discussion section in the middle. Straight away, they jump to conclusion and recommendations. Again, why? Because the conclusions and recommendations are important, because in both these heading, important points are available, that on which the action is needed by the higher administration. After that, there is a discussion section, or if you want to write it, and then there is a reference section. So this is the basic difference between a traditional and the administrative reports heading wise. Now we will discuss about the front material. As I mentioned earlier, in front material you have the transmittal correspondence, like when you're writing your emails. You have the title page, you have the table of contents, you have list of illustration, you have summary and or objects, or purpose or statement writing. So first we will discuss the transmittal correspondence. For example, what is transmittal correspondence? It is a document usually that directs the report to someone. It contains like the title of the report, a statement of when it was requested, um, a very general statement of the report purpose and scope, or an explanation problems encountered. For example, um, whatever the problems occur, you can write in it, or at the end you an acknowledgement of those who are particularly helpful in assembling the report. So these are the just transmittal correspondence, and it generally belongs to your writing, how you are good at your writing, because somehow your wordings, your choice of words, and your acknowledgements to your colleagues' work is very important whenever you are writing email, or whenever you are attaching a document, or you are writing especially in your the first page of your document. So we will see an example of the transmittal correspondence in next slide. Here is an example of the transmittal correspondence, like to whom you are writing. It is mentioned Vice President, Administrative Affairs, from obviously your designation, your name, and subject is very important. Most of the time we do a mistake that we don't write subject, or somehow if we write subject, we generally copy paste the scope in the subject section. Always remember, the subject needs to be very precise, or you can say a one look approach is very much workable here. So anyone who can read at first sight, he or she can understand what is your email about, or what is your document is about. As you can see on the left hand side, there are four section. It is divided into the four section, the transmittal correspondence. First of all, you have the title of report, generally the cause of writing. Then you have the purpose of report, a statement of request, and praise of coworker. like we mentioned in our previous. So how you can write, like in the example you can see attached is my report. Now you have to write what is the title of your report. That is proposal for the implementation of spousal employment assistance program which you requested. Now you have attached your report, and now you are providing the reference that when this report is demanded, or I can say um, who demand the report, or in which meeting the report demand is put on. Now the purpose of report, you write very briefly. The report presents a solution to the problems identified by a large number of new hires. Or in the statement of request, in brief, those new hires all had spouses who had to leave careers to move to rosters. This proposal recommends initiating a spousal employment assistance program to deal with the relocation problem. Now this is the statement of request. You can see how they manage in just 1 to 2 half sentences, just to make a clear understanding in very shorter version, or less use of words. Now, in the last section, they just praised or acknowledged the co-workers, compiled by human resources staff. This report owes a significant debt to employees and their spouses who agreed to be interviewed as part of its preparation. So this is the transmittal correspondence, in which you generally gives a complete, I can say, a summary about the whole correspondence. Now, why it is very much important? Generally, the designation remain constant, and the people present on that designations may be changed. So if I am a HR director, one day it is might be possible I leave the job, or I transferred to any other department. So official correspondence is always between office to office. It doesn't between like person to person correspondence. It is generally between office to office correspondence. So this is the example of the transmittal correspondence. Now we have a title page. Generally, the title page give a quick overview of the report, while at the same time making favorable impression on the reader. Some of the firms have a standard title pages of their report, like you have seen the letterheads of the specific companies. So what are the important do's and don'ts of the title page of a formal report? Remember, you can make your title page of your formal report by your own when the company standard is not available. So generally place all the elements at the left of the margin. Name the contents of the report in the title. Use a 2-inch left margin, or you can use includes especially the writer's name, the title or department, the date, or you can say the recipient's name, title, or departments, or to whom you are reporting. So these are the very I can say the easygoing features of the title page. Always remember, don't use too much color, or change of font. Generally, the topic or the report name should be in the bold format, like you can see in the slide. Proposal for the implementation of the spouse employment assistance program, so it is written in the bold. By, like you have written the report, or it is written by your office. So you mentioned your name and your designation also, and prepared for, to whom you are sending this report, it is also mentioned. So this is a very simple and unique, I must say, the very simple title page that you can use in your report. Now you have the table of contents. As I mentioned earlier, the table of contents provide the overview of your whole report. Uh, some of the key aspects you have to keep in your mind while writing the table of contents. Uh, Present the name of each section in the same wording and format as it appear in the text. Do not underline in the table of content. The lines are so powerful that they overwhelm the word. Don't use page or p before the page number. Just write it simple. Use only page number on which the section start. This is very important point. Generally it is a common mistake. We use the end of the documents, the end page number of the documents. Present no more than 3 levels of heading. 2 is usually the best. Use leaders as series of dots to connect words to page number. Now this is this work you have to done when you're writing manually, but in word processing softwares you have the option to generate your table of contents automatically. Now it is very important that uh, it is very important that you have to be very careful while writing the documents and while writing your report, and it will automatically generate the table of content. Like whenever you are writing the table of when you are writing your headings, so you have to be very careful. The heading must not be very long or lengthy, so it will create problem. And after that your word processing tool will create the table of content automatically for you by mentioning the page numbers. So in that case, if you're not using that format or that tool, then you have to write your table of content by yourself. So this is important feature of any report, the table of content. If it is very brief and well written, so it will be easy for the user to understand your material or report. We have the list of illustrations. It includes both table and figures that are important content to be presented in any report. So there are some guidelines you have to follow for a list of illustrations. Like, use the title list of illustration if it contains both figures and table. Generally you can use for list of figures in separate section, and list of tables in separate section, or format provided by the company or to whom you are writing a report for. So a list number, title, pages for each visual aid. Place the list on the most convenient page, so if possible put it on the same page as the table of the contents. The list of illustrations, if you are writing the caption of the figure, don't write too much long captions, don't write too much long table names, so it will be very difficult for the readers to understand it. Summary or abstracts. You have to follow some of the guidelines while writing the summary. Concentrate this information into as few words as possible, one page at most. Generally, when we are going to write the summaries, we usually write too much material in that. because summary should be precise and concise, at that everyone should read it easily, and write the summary after you have written the rest of the report. If you write it first, you might be tempted to explain background rather than summarize the content. This point is very important. Um Whenever you are writing a report, write the whole report first, and after that you have to write the summary. Avoid technical terminologies in the summary, because summary should be generic, so every reader should understand this.